causes for death, and even the things that normally are seen as supporting life or helping our life can themselves turn into the cause of death. So maybe the good doctor knows how many people die from, you know, an allergic reaction to medicine they've taken. You know, there's so many things like this. They take the medicine, they think it's you know, going to cure them, but they have some like allergic reaction, they die. How many people die to like food allergies, or even, you know, houses collapsing or car accidents? These things we normally see as being like, you know, sustaining our life, making our lives easier, they can also cause our death. So that's why Nagarjuna says in the Precious Garland that, yeah, exactly this. The causes of death are many, the causes of sustaining life are few. Even those can turn into causes for our death. Therefore, always practice the Dharma. And then the third point on this is just that the great fragility of life, you know. So even like we can't even see with our naked eye, some virus or some bacteria, it gets into our blood, it can cause our death, you know. Our like, there can be some like very small mutation within our DNA, you know, as the cells divide and replicate. Some small mutation in the genes can cause, you know, cancer, right? So the body is extremely fragile. So then last is that at the time of death, the only thing that's going to matter is our Dharma practice, right? So our family, our loved ones, won't matter. Now, this isn't to say they don't matter, but at the time of death, the point is we go on alone to our next life, you know? So whether we die alone in a cave, right, with no one to mourn us, like Milarika has said, yeah? Or we have, you know, a lot of people around our deathbed, they actually, the amount of benefit they can give us is very, very less, right? And in fact, if one of your relatives is dying, like, you should make sure, if you're around the deathbed, that no one is around there who's like crying and wailing, right? You want that person to die in a peaceful way. And so if someone is crying and, you know, doing all this stuff, get them out of the room. Because this, if they know, it can cause like their mind to be disturbed and them to have attachment to their loved one, which can then, you know, be an obstacle for a peaceful death process. Okay. Anyway, then the possessions also don't help. In the Tibetan text, they say just like, you know, a hair being lifted out of butter. Yeah, you've seen that? Huh? Yes? Yes. You know, so if you have you know, butter and a hair, if you take the hair out, there's no butter left on the hair, right? Just the hair comes out. So it's like that. Whether we're, you know, a king or a beggar, we all go empty-handed into the next life. Then last, even our body that we treasure and always have been with throughout this entire life, we leave that behind as well. Okay? So those are the 9 points. And at each of those 3 root points, we make a decision. Yeah? And this is what we have to like sink our mind into. Because death is inevitable, we make the firm determination that we must practice Dharma. Because the time of death is uncertain, we have to start practice now. And because because only our spiritual practice or our Dharma practice will be a benefit at the time of death, we have to practice purely. Okay? So that's how the 9-point death meditation works. So, let's do it. Okay? Workshop. So, sorry, this is my own kind of personal preference. When you come to some courses with meditations that are guided, some meditation guides, they talk a lot, okay? During the meditation. I talk a lot, but during the lecture. But during the meditation, I like giving you guys a bit more freedom. So of those 9 points, right, some might be a little bit more tasty, have a bit more effect on your mind. So you can focus on that. We're only going to be doing this for like, how long? Maybe 7 minutes, okay? We'll do this meditation just for 7 minutes. So kind of go through those points, and you all know the 9. If you don't know the 9, you know the 3, right? Yeah. Time of death, sorry, death is certain, time of death uncertain. At the time of death, only Dharma will matter, okay? So think about that. And what I've told you, yeah, is the wisdom arising from hearing, right? So you also contemplate, and you bring in from your personal experience, you know, you choose the examples, your loved ones who have died, you know, the stories you have about how death has been unexpected, and the kind of weird ways that you know that people have died and all this. Make it real for you, and then have those sink in and affect your mind. Okay? So let's just do this for 7 minutes, and I'm going to do something very rare for me and zip it. Okay? Okay, please come out of the meditation and bring your attention back to the room. How's that? You guys know what we were trying to do? Or you did something that touched your mind? Yeah? It's something we don't really talk about very much, or think about very much usually, because it's a bit uncomfortable, right? This thought of death. But I think it really can help us, especially with how we prioritize our life, you know? We usually, when people say this, here in India it's very good, because often the parents will live with the children, and there's a lot of Indians, they always complain about the US, like, we don't care about our parents, and so we just send them off to a nursing home. Yeah? Yes. Yeah? Yeah, you guys are going to complain to me about that too. No, I'm kidding. And it's almost like this, like a taboo. And yeah, if you're cynical about it, it's like, we send our old people away to some place so we don't have to see them and we don't have to think about it. And then all these, you know, cosmetic products and so forth to dye our, you know, gray hair black or whatever. And all these creams to prevent wrinkles from happening and all this stuff, you know? Anyway, we're about to have lunch, so since we had a bit of a downer just now, I'm going to tell a couple stories. Then I'll open it to questions, and then we'll eat. How's that? Okay?
Good.
Alright. So someone I know, she's Indian. Okay, I always feel now, especially with the camera, I'm like, should I tell this story? Is it gonna come around and like bite me in the future? So I'm gonna try to just make it a little bit more general. But there's someone I know, she's actually Indian but living abroad, okay? And she's still very beautiful. Now she's, you know, a little bit older, probably. I don't want to say her name, but she has children that are already grown up. Let's just say, okay, all right. Anyway, she probably used to be quite a knockout, like quite gorgeous, and now she's still quite good looking, and she looks, you know, younger than she is, right? So anyway, in the place where she's now living, there is a lama, Geshe Lama Kuncho, who maybe some of you have heard, a great Tibetan yogi and practitioner who, you know, was said to have attained enlightenment in his last life. He died in about maybe 2001 or so. He passed away. Anyway, so Geshe Lama Kunchok went to the city where this woman was living, and it was actually her 50th birthday party. Okay? Alright. So then, you know, they went out to dinner, and Geshe Lama was also invited. And then, you know, they just said it's my birthday. They don't say it's my 50th birthday. You know, so then they went around and it's like, I think Geshe Lama asked, because in Tibetan culture, it's no problem to ask how old you are, you know? Right? How old are you? In the US, it's very rude to ask a woman her age, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know, very rude, but it's not done. No, Geshe Lama was very direct. How old are you? Right? He was very like that, very direct, pulling no punches. And then, you know, this woman, you know, well, how old do I look? You know? So when someone asks you that, guys, just whatever you think, minus 10, okay? All right. But anyway, so like, then the other people, they were guessing like, oh yeah, she was 50, right? Oh yeah, 40, 42, you know, oh 41, 38, and she's just like, you know, getting more and more happy. And then at the end, I mean, she finally was like, well actually, I'm 50, you know. And then Geshe Lama says, well, 50, that means you're old. And if you are old, it's better that you look old, because then you'll remember that you're going to die soon. Can you imagine? Happy birthday. It's very, you know, that was Geshe Lama, you know. Then one of my mom's best friends, actually from Texas. Okay, my mom lives in Hawaii still, right? Great weather. So at Christmas, which is in December, yeah, then a lot of people, that's the time when you visit your relatives in Hawaii. Okay? So anyway, my mom's best friend's mother used to live in Texas. Okay? Her name was Mary Lou. Mary Lou. And then, okay, there's this product. I don't know if you have it here in India. It's called oil of Olay.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah?
Oil of Olay.
Yeah, yeah. It's, you know, anti-wrinkle cream, something like this, right? So one time Mary Lou goes to the store and has some of this, you know, as in the checkout line, okay? And you know, the checkout girl is one of these, I don't know, maybe like 20-year-old. And she like picks it up and like, you know, beep, like rings it. It's like, oh, oil of Olay. Does this stuff really work? You know? And then Mary Lou is like, you tell me. So the checkout girl like looks there. No. Anyway. Later, Mary Lou, a few years later, she had a stroke actually. And then, but she still came out to Hawaii, but she had a little bit of difficulty walking. And then my mom hosted a Christmas party at her house, and she came. And she had like difficulty like going to the toilet. And so I guess she sat down and then had trouble standing back up. And so she called, and then her son's partner then like goes into the toilet to like help her up. And then as she's leaving, you know, never forget this as long as I live. She's crying and kept repeating to herself, I never thought this would happen to me. I never thought this would happen to me. And anyway, she passed away a few years later. But the point is, you know, it's very instructive, because here what we're trying to say is we should think, we must think this will happen to us. You know? Well, we're either going to die before it happens to us, or this kind of thing will happen to us, right? So there's no time to waste or, you know, dilly-dally, you know? We must practice Dharma because we're going to die. We must practice Dharma because the time of death is uncertain. And we must practice purely because when we die, the only thing that's going to matter is our Dharma. So, do you have questions? Please.
I have one small question. What do you think about Buddhist perspective about suicide, and especially regarding how to approach such kind of people who are very suicidal?
Yeah.
Because this is a common situation I encounter in my clinical setting, where like I have a patient who has depressive symptoms for many years. During depression, she gets somatic symptoms like pain, complaint, and all, and because of that, she committed 3 attempts.
Right.
Because she was holding on to that feeling so much into distress. So how do we approach such situations?
Yeah, so the question is, what is the Buddhist concept of suicide? And how do we deal with such situations? So, well, it's my belief that, you know, this concept of Buddha nature, actually, that we talked about first, if we really internalize it and understand it, then there'll be no chance for depression to come, much less thoughts of suicide. because whatever kind of problems we have, it's nothing compared to the good that is in our life, just because we are alive in this kind of body and mind. But anyway, for many people, if you start talking about all this stuff, it'd be difficult for them. But at least this concept of, impermanence. So impermanence, we often talk about it in the context of like, oh, it's like a bad thing, like impermanence meaning death, or like the pleasant sensations we have are going to perish, all this kind of thing. But there is a positive side to impermanence too, and that is any kind of problems we have is also subject to cause and condition, therefore not fixed, therefore it can change, So even this, and this is what we're going to talk about this afternoon, we tend to grasp onto the permanence of our problems even. And even something very, very, very little. Let's, I am depressed. I am depressed. It's like the grammar of it. It's like, am is like equals, right? So like I equal depressed, right? So it's like we have a strong identification with whatever problem we have, right? And then when we get so fixed in that concept, it becomes very static. So whatever it is, the first thing to do, or one of the first things, maybe one of the top 3 things to do, is just to loosen this heavy identification we have with whatever problem. I am angry. No, I mean, anger arises in my mind, but I'm not angry all the time, right? Or whatever it is. Depression doesn't happen all the time, right? And because it doesn't happen all the time, right? If the mind is given certain stimulus and is in certain situations, then certain mental states will arise. But if exposed to different kind of stimulus, different kind of mental states will arise, right? But the mere fact that we have this thought, I am depressed, or I am, no good, or I am angry, or whatever it is, then that causes a destructive, like self-fulfilling prophecy, where it happens more and more and more again, right? So part of what can be useful is to reframe these thoughts and stimulus that come into our mind, right? This thought of anger, this is what we were doing yesterday, right? Everything that comes up in our meditation practice is not me, it's not myself, right? It's just some kind of message or input that appears on the so-called movie screen of our mind. But if we can get some distance between ourself and it, it's not me, but oh yes, there is this thought of depression in my mind now. Okay. And then just kind of disassociate with it. It doesn't have to, rule us, right? And then we don't have to believe in what it tells us. We can just take it like for example, you guys know, we might, if we see a piece of chocolate cake, right? Even yours, very good. I've now had 4 pieces. But every time we see a piece of chocolate cake, we don't have to eat it, right? Even though there might be some desire for it, right? So it's not like these mental impulses, when they come up, they then have to dictate everything. So even if there's some thought of depression, okay, yeah, well, that's the nature of the mind too, right? Because the mind is intrinsically clear and clean, that means anything can arise in it, just like in a mirror. Depending on what you put in front of the mirror, different things can appear in it, right? Right? So the mind is like that. So depression can arise, but the mind is not intrinsically depressed, right? So it's a matter of, not adding fuel to the fire of the depressing thoughts by saying, I am that way, but rather trying to put different things in front of the mirror, you know? And what we're going to be talking about this afternoon is, you know, especially I think this thought of compassion, you know? Because thought of compassion, meaning thinking about others' suffering and trying to, you know, meditate or pray or do something to alleviate their suffering. Because depression is this whole, like, you know, me. It's actually a very strong ego is coming up, actually. Although it thinks it's low, but it's actually a very strong sense of the I, you know? And when we get depressed, it's often because we have like these unrealistic expectations of, you know, I have to be the best, or I have to be like this, and we don't meet our own expectations, so then we think we're worthless, you know? So even just changing our orientation a bit toward others will help with that depression.